The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello and welcome to today's webinar. I'm Nick Zulovich, part of the team at Cherokee Media Group and senior editor of Subprime Auto Finance News. In today's webinar, aligning sales with customers' natural path to the purchase, we're going to learn more from Patrick McMullen, who is Senior Vice President of Strategy and Innovation at MAXDigital. But before we get started, I want to go over a few housekeeping items for today's webinar. Please make sure you've dialed in using the phone number provided in your communication email, or you're able to listen via your PC speakers. We are recording today's webinar, and we'll make that recording available to you as soon as possible. You will be in listen-only mode for our session today, but we will reserve some time after Patrick's presentation for a Q&A session. You can submit your questions at any time through the questions box on the GoToWebinar control panel. And if we aren't able to get to your question today, don't worry, because we'll forward it on to the team at MAXDigital so they can respond back to you directly via email. And lastly, if you have any difficulty during the webinar, please click on the hand icon to alert a member of our team. With years of experience and lots of great material to share, let's get right to Patrick for our webinar. Patrick, the floor is now yours.
Thank you, Nick. And thanks also for the great partnership that we've had with you guys over the years. And many thanks to everyone that joined us today. I think you'll get a lot of valuable information out of what we're going to discuss today to take back, to your dealerships and put into process right away. As Nick mentioned, my name is Patrick McMullen. I'm the Senior Vice President of Strategy at MAXDigital. And I have a unique role here where I had the absolute pleasure to travel our country and talk to dealers just like you almost every week and learn from them best practices in a bunch of different aspects of the dealership. But we'll discuss some of those, but the main focus will be the current state of our sales process in the dealerships. And as everyone's aware, today's consumer has changed in all areas of business, not just in automotive and ours. The question is, though, have you adopted your sales process? And more importantly, is it built around the way today's consumer wants to purchase a car? I'm going to share with you how other progressive dealers have done this and what it takes to develop a process in your store that is scalable, repeatable, and technology enabled. So let's go ahead and dive in. As Nick said, if you have any questions, please put them in the question toolbar and we'll get to them at the end. If not, myself or one of the members of my team will be reaching out today, as early as today, to discuss any follow-ups. So let's go ahead and dive in and discuss aligning sales with the customer's natural path to the purchase. So we're going to discuss some of the consumer research that we've done as a company. We did a huge project at NADA last year where we talked to over 400 dealers and asked them a whole bunch of different questions around the sales process. So we're going to share some of that with you. And it was mainly built around the traditional road to the sale. So that 12-step program that a lot of us have hanging inside of our dealerships and why that's really a dead end or why it's become a dead end. I'm going to talk about some case studies, some actual customers and some dealers that have successfully navigated away from this traditional road to the sale and how they've been able to sell cars more profitably and more often. And show you how it can be done. Taking the best of the best from these innovative dealers and finding out how to follow the customer's path to the purchase and how you can do this in a repeatable process. So let's talk about the consumer decision journey and how the internet has kind of changed that over the years. So kind of take a step back for a second, a little history lesson just to kind of put our minds straight. If we remember the early years of automotive internet, the auto industry was really focused on internet to drive traffic to the dealership. So we had a bunch of different things that we paid for. Obviously, our dealer websites, direct marketing, data mining. We were on Cars.com, Auto Trader, SEO, SEM, online lead management, and it just goes on and on. And those dealers who embraced online photos and descriptions and pricing and advertising early on won more traffic and sales. Those who didn't, were left behind. So if we look at kind of where we're at today and really where our company has seen the industry trend to and where we see it trending going forward. The first wave really is how the customers have changed from, where they were as little as 8, 9 years ago. Today's consumer, as we all know, this is a stat that, we see in a lot of the publications, a lot of the online sources, paper ads that come out or newspaper ads, but the average consumer spends a ton of time doing research online before purchasing a car. And in our study, we asked dealers, how often does that internet savvy consumer show up to your dealership with more information about the car they're coming to buy than the salesperson has that's trying to sell it to them? And, over 61% said yes, all the time. I actually think that number's higher from the customers that we talk to. I never really have any pushback on this because it's just a sheer numbers game. If you have 100 cars in your lot and you're turning that inventory every 30, 35, 40 days, it's literally impossible to be an expert on every single vehicle that's on your lot. So that really puts us to this point where the amateur who buys a car maybe every 4 to 6 years, they know more than the pro, the salesperson. So that playing field needs to be leveled. And those dealers that embrace technology improve sales productivity. And just one of the ways that our dealers do that is with what we call our digital showroom. So we really, pioneered the concept of helping sales consultants become instant experts or in-time experts. Customer asks a question about the car, using the technology to have all the valuable information about that car to build quality and value, and then use pricing proof points to show that they are getting a fair deal. So you can see here, talking about the premium package, the cold weather package, the driver assist, the highlights, the Carfax, the certification, the price versus books. So all this was built to make instant experts when that customer shows up, to level that playing field with that internet savvy consumer. I know a lot of dealers, they might do this by hand, where they do some research on the car and they make brag books, but utilizing the technology to do this for you is much easier, and it's a much clearer presentation to the customer. The second wave is this concept that we've come up with called stop the drop. So what does drop mean? So if we think about it from a sales perspective, if we have a car on the lot that is priced at $21,999, customer shows up, they do the test drive. We're trying to build value in the car, but we're not doing a great job of it. Comes back to the showroom. What does the customer do? They ask for a discount. What does the salesperson do? Instead of defending their price and defending their product, they get up and they go talk to the sales manager. So that drop is that discount between our asking price and what we actually end up selling the car for. And the same old sales plays aren't working. Why? Well, if we think about the industry as a whole, we've all fundamentally adopted a market-based pricing philosophy. Whatever tool you use to figure out where you need to be priced in the market, there's a handful of them out there today, but every dealer that I know, excuse me, is out there and they're looking to see how am I priced compared to my competition. But when that customer shows up, even though we've priced the car to sell, if you think about it, that's really our first discount, that market-based pricing. So our second discount comes when we negotiate to get the deal closed. And this is putting a huge downward spiral on gross profits in the dealers. And those dealers who've committed to manage their quote-unquote drop, they've proved that gross margin retention is possible moving forward. So, if you're doing this, if you're not doing this today, there's technology out there to help you do this. You can pull this information from your DMS. But if you look at not only your store month over month, so you can see here this store had an average drop of $591, $392, $363, but then rank the salespeople as well and see, which salespeople are giving up the most gross, and then maybe pair that with a salesperson that does this a little bit more effectively. So using the technology to monitor this and manage this on a daily process really helps stop that drop. And the closer that we can sell to asking price, because we know that it's a good price. We've looked at the market. We've looked at all the online listings. We know how it compares to the books, but we're still giving up gross when we negotiate that car. So if we make a mantra in our dealerships to stop that drop, that's how you're going to start seeing your gross profits rise. So this concept, if you're not doing this today, that's something that you can take away, is to monitor that. The third wave, and this is where we see the industry moving towards, is doing business the way customers want. So the traditional road to the sale, it's broken if you think about it. According to Driving Sales, they did a customer experience study. Almost all buyers expect the purchase journey to be a hassle. Over 50% said that they would buy more often if the process wasn't so difficult. And I'm sure you see this if you're sitting in your dealership today and you have customers in there. I'm sure you see a customer keeps the salesperson and the dealer at arm's length until late in the process and late into the purchase process, because they're expecting it to be a hassle and there's some distrust there. The other big takeaway from this too is, this is a huge issue that's affecting our industry today, is car sales consultant turnover. So the car sales consultants have the highest turnover rate in the industry at 67%. So when I'm with dealers, I ask them, how does this compare to your turnover? And I get an array of different answers. Some are much higher, some are much lower, but usually on average, they're somewhere hovering around here. And I have dealers tell me that, on average, it costs up to $30,000 every time that they turn over a salesperson. So at just the industry average of 67%, you have 20 salespeople on your floor right now. That means that 13 of them are going to turn over this year. So if we're already turning over our salespeople anyways, why not think about a new way to sell inventory, a new way to empower the salespeople, and utilize technology to do that? And dealers who adopted their sales process around that customer's path, the way the customers want to buy a car, they see higher gross profits and higher sales. So this is a picture that I took from a dealer. This is the road to the sale, the traditional road to the sale. It's 12 steps here, 12 things, 12 ways that we want to sell a car to a customer, not 12 ways a customer wants to buy a car. And the road to the sale, it's causing continued frustration for car consumers, and it's eroding margins for dealers. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't want to be forced into buying something the way somebody wants me to buy it. I want to go on my own terms. And customers are kind of the same way, and that's why there's a big disconnect there. And if you think about the pricing, we fundamentally changed the way that we price our inventory, but we haven't changed this antiquated way that we sell inventory to customers. So how do we get off the traditional road to the sale and navigate it around the way consumers want to buy a car, what we call the consumer's path to purchase? So let's talk about that. Now, what I want to show you is some dealers who have adopted their process around the customer's path to the purchase and some of the success that they've seen. So one is a group of used car superstores, a large regional group, and a national big box independent dealer. I'm going to show you some of the tricks of the trade that they did. But really, here's the proof's in the pudding. Average salesperson at that group of used car superstores sells on average 25 cars a month at $3,000 front and back. And they're non-commissioned salespeople, and it's no haggle. The large regional group, they're up 16% in pre-owned volume. Last year, they sold 36,000 used cars, and that was up 16%. Their average discount per transaction per sale was $102 across the board, across 36,000 cars. Show you kind of some of the things that they do. And then a big box independent dealer, that's everybody knows, probably has them in your marketplace. They're up 50% over the last 5 years, and they're a no haggle store as well. And what are these dealers doing differently? This is the big question that dealers have: is how do they get these results by changing? So the first thing they've done is they've recognized that when somebody comes to buy a car, maybe it's every 4 years, 5 years, 6 years. What they realize is that there may be some distrust out the gate from that person. They may have had a really bad experience previously, or maybe they were across the street and had a bad experience. But this is This is a poll that Gallup does every year, and it's called Trust in Professions. And I've been monitoring this poll for years, probably the last 8 years. And there's good news and bad news here. The bad news is only 9% of the people surveyed said that they have trust in car salespeople. The good news is we finally made it above members of Congress, where we were below them last year. So we're moving up, and I think as we change the way that we're selling our inventory to customers, and we make it centric around the way they want to buy a car, this number is going to go through the roof. Because, like I said, they may have had a bad experience years ago, or maybe just very recently at another dealership. But when they come to your store, this is what those dealers do differently. They infuse trust and confidence into every element of the customer experience. So what I mean by that, infuse trust and confidence into every element of the customer experience. So with their people, in their sales process, in the product, the car, the product that they're selling, in their pricing, in their payment options and protection plans, they infuse trust and confidence through each step. Let me kind of walk you through how they do that with salespeople. So the first thing that they teach is listen to the customer and focus on their goals, not the 12 steps that we want to push them into, that we want to push them through. Listen to the customer and focus on what their goals are for that purchase. Secondly, they arm the salespeople to be instant experts. They arm them with technology to eloquently explain the highlights of that vehicle or the pricing of that vehicle and how it's fair and the quality and value of the car, the pricing proof points, the option packages, the highlights, the Carfax, the crash test ratings, things like that. And they're doing this early and often. The process is built around the customer and their path to the purchase, but what they also do is they deliver how and why their dealership is different up front. And I'll show you some examples of how they do that and some of the materials that they use to accomplish that. And the biggest thing is they move quickly through the process. They move quickly through it because people don't want to spend 4 hours in a dealership to buy a car. We have a lot of dealers that are trying to get this under 90 minutes, from meet and greet to get them into F&I. So that's a quick turnaround, but it can be done if we kind of fundamentally think about the purchase different. In the product, so this is the car. They're using facts, not just words, to sell the vehicle. We call this "Make the Car the Star." We actually borrowed that from our friends at Hendrick Automotive, but that's really a mantra that they've created amongst their stores. Stores is make the car the star. Talk about the car. What makes this car special? And in order to do that, they arm their salespeople with the technology to become instant experts on every single car. And they build excitement by getting the customer into the car and test driving it quickly. The next piece is pricing. So with our inventory management tools that we use and the market-based pricing philosophy that we have, we know what the right price for that car is to drive traffic. I still see a lot of dealers price it high at day one, wait maybe 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and then reprice it to the market. What these stores do differently is they price to sell the optimal selling price at the initial price. They do that initially. And they eliminate haggling on vehicles on the buying and on the trade-in side. And then what they do is they call it value pricing. And I'll show you an example of that in just a minute here. With payment and protection, so on payment, they earn solid profit markups by eliminating haggling, speeding up the process by doing a fixed rate. So they may only have a markup of 1.25 in rate, and they get to the proper payment that the customer is looking for through cash and term, so cash down and term, not through rate. And then on protection, increased product penetration through fixed price options, so more like an easy button when it comes to warranty and gap and so on and so forth. So making it very easy for the customer to purchase protection plans, just like my iPhone. I pay for the protection plan because I have 2 children and they like to play my phone and occasionally they break it. I don't want to spend another $900 on a new iPhone, but I'll pay my deductible and get a replacement. So same concept there. So let's talk about realigning the dealership experience around the path of the purchase. And really, it all starts with pricing. It starts with that pricing out of the gate. And it starts with, where should we be? So if you're using a pricing tool currently, when you're thinking about this, we need to think about price versus market, and then also how do I price without dropping or discounting. So this just happens to be our pricing tool. There's many good pricing tools out there, but just some of the things that you want to make sure that you're looking at when you're pricing your inventory initially at day one is defining that competitive set, looking at the marketplace, and being able to look at drilling down to mileage or multiple years. Very important to be able to sort by packages or equipment. In this particular case, a 750 BMW, if it's got a cold weather or a tech package or a sport package, those can add a lot of value to that vehicle. So being able to sort the inventory or that set by equipment or packages is very important. The second thing is you got a price to be in the game. There's a lot of debate about where you should start initial pricing or how you should price as the car ages. My philosophy, and from my former days when I was at CarMax, is price the car to sell, but you don't want to give up profit either. So you don't want to make it a race to the bottom and just worry about rank or percent to market. If you have something that's unique, price it accordingly to the market for what you have. But we still want you to make money. You should still make money. But if you do have a unique inventory piece, tell why. And the last piece is using pricing proof points at day one to determine where you're at. So if we're priced at 100% to the market, know right off the bat how I compare to the current market, my competitive set, how it compares to the original MSRP, how it compares to the NADA, Kelly, Edmunds, whatever third-party book you may use. Set yourself up for success at day one, and know if I'm a used car manager, I'm pricing the inventory. If I price the car at this, I know that I'm going to drive traffic. I'm going to make a potential profit here. And also, I'm setting my sales staff up to not discount because I'm giving them all the pricing proof points they need to be able to hold that gross and not come ask me for a discount. So make sure that you're looking at that when day one, when you're pricing that inventory. So after pricing, how do we realign the dealership experience around the path to the purchase or the path to the buying? So the meet and greet's never going to go away, right? So we still do the meet and greet, but remember we went from a 12-step program all the way down to what we see here, 5 steps. If it's a subprime customer, just continue to proceed with your credit-driven process and whatever process that you might have in your stores. But if it's a prime customer, proceed with this path to the purchase. So the first thing is setting that agenda and initiating an expedited process up front so the customer knows where you're at. So the initial sales consultation, listen to the customer and set the agenda based on their priorities, not ours, not the 12 steps that we want to walk them through, but their priorities and what they hope to accomplish. Introduce how and why the dealership's different. So this is just some of the ways that dealers do this today. So these are 2 of the examples that I talked about before. And what they do is, right after the initial meet and greet, they explain how and why their dealership is different. So on this first one here, this is just a standard point of sale material that stands up in the dealership, but they talk about how they have no AGL pricing, non-commissioned sales associates, the lifetime engine guarantee, the 109-point vehicle inspection, free home delivery. They're talking about the warranty. They're talking about how they're different. Now, we all have something like this. We call it a brand promise. Hopefully, we all have some sort of brand promise at our dealerships that we convey to that customer, but by putting it in a stand-up and walking the customer to it and talking them through it really seems to help set yourselves apart, at least for these stores. The second one is they talk about their fair value price and trade-in process. And they talk about this up front, early and often. So before they even go look at the car or before they even talk about price, they talk about how they price their inventory differently. and how they do research in the market and how they use pricing proof points. And they talk about their trade-in process, how it's fair, and how they come up with those values. So when it comes down to pricing or it comes down to negotiation, those negotiations are a lot less. They're negotiating in hundreds, and they use something called dealer loyalty cash to do this, and I'll explain what that is in just a second. And the last piece here with the initial sales consultation is identify vehicles of interest to the customer. So identify those vehicles that might fit that customer's needs, and then sell the value of that car. So sell the value of the premium package, the Lexus Safety System Plus, the Intuitive Park Assist. Sell the highlights, sell the MPGs, the Carfax, the certification, and most importantly, when it comes to price in the upper right-hand corner, sell the pricing proof points and sell how your price is comparable to the market or comparable to the third-party books. And if a customer asks for a discount, we got to train our salespeople to build value, to go back to this sheet to build value that they are getting a good deal. They're getting quality and value at a fair price. And that's what consumers want. A very big, large independent dealer group, and it was backed up by our survey that we did at NADA. We asked dealers what percentage of consumers want to buy quality and value at a fair price versus the lowest price alone. It came out to 80%. 80% understood that that's what customers want. But we haven't changed the way that we sell our inventory. So the second thing is explore the vehicles. So check out cars and test drive. So enable the sales team to be instant experts. Build value in the car by using evidence, not price-based selling, but evidence-based selling. So using on the lot your cell phone or an iPad to build the value and how this car is priced compared to the market, the packages on this vehicle, the navigation system, the premium package, the wheels, the Carfax, the certification, the crash test rating, so on and so forth. And then sharing this with the customer as well to make sure that they're looking at the same stuff that we're looking at. The next thing is agreeing on price for the purchase of the vehicle and the trade-in, and using closing tools to help you do this. Not just a number on a sheet of paper, but using closing tools to be able to do this. So the secret behind closing without drops, and this is one of the things that on that example that I showed you before, one of the things that they do. So the customer walks onto the lot and they see the sticker price and they say, yeah, but what's the real price? And then they ask, well, why is that a fair price? When the salesperson says that is the real price, in their head they're asking, but why is that a fair price? So using evidence to show that you're a fair price. If your current provider doesn't give this to you, there's providers out there that will, like us. But if you're looking at this, show this, and having it printed out versus the salesperson just talking about it. If the customer's done 14 hours worth of research, they've probably looked at a lot of these sources. The average stat now is when a consumer buys a car, they're visiting less than 2 dealerships. So they either just left one or you're the first. They picked your car out of the thousands of cars that are in your market. They picked your car out of the hundreds of dealerships that are in your market. So they know that your price is fair. We just have to back that up with evidence. And then when it comes to the trade, conduct a trade and walk around with the customer. So one thing that our groups are moving to is having the sales consultant do a walk around and interview the car through the customer. So they ask things about the tires, about the brakes, any body damage they may see, the interior, the exterior, the wheels, and they get the customer to rate that. So you can see down here at the bottom, it looks like your tires have been kind of worn. How would you rate them on a scale of 1 to 10? And they get the customer to buy in, and when they present that to the customer, they present that number. They're using evidence around the books that they use to come up with the value, but they also show the evidence on, what percentage the customer rated their car. Because most customers, when they come in, they've looked at Kelley Blue Book, they've clicked excellent, they think their car is in pristine condition. By walking the customer around the car and pointing out some of the imperfections, our dealer groups are telling us that they're acquiring inventory at a lesser price point than they used to, which ultimately we all know that's how we make our gross. If we can acquire it at a discounted rate than normal, that's where our grosses come into play. The other secret is using that dealer loyalty cash. So one of the groups, what they do is they empower their salespeople with, they give them about a $300, leeway to negotiate without talking to a manager. And they do this two different ways. If it's a repeat buyer, so remember, they're talking about how and why their dealership is different at the initial meet and greet. And they're walking them over to the point of sale material and they're pointing it out and they're explaining the process or their brand promise. So if I've bought a car from this dealer group the last 3 times, I may say, well, why am I getting the same price on this vehicle that the guy that's never bought a car from you before is he's paying? So what they do is they reach into their stash and they're able to give them a discount. You know what, Patrick, we can give you a $150 discount for being a repeat buyer. Or maybe it's a conquest customer that you took off of, they bought cars at a previous group. If you promise to do service with us in the future, after you buy this car for the life of the car, we could give you a $100 discount off this car. And that's how they've been able to get to a $102 discount across the board, selling that many cars, 36,000 cars. Their average discount was very, very, very low. And they're doing this, but they're doing this in every single deal. It's not on this deal or that deal. It's every single time. And they empower their salespeople to follow this process to a T every single time. So next thing is determine payment. So some of the best practices here is how do we set a no haggling in setting up a payment? So that markup and rate, they mark it up consistently and don't make rate markup negotiable. And the thing that we found too from some of our consumer research that we've done is most consumers don't know that rate is negotiable. And this allows for a consistent rate profit without losing trust. And a change in rate is only based on a new lender offer. So they don't change the rate to try to get to a payment that they're looking for. They keep that consistent rate markup across the board. And they get to affordable payment by term and cash down. And then on protection products, they increase opportunity of selling with somewhat of an easy button and eliminating out-of-pocket for repairs and maintenance. So whether it's extended warranty, maintenance on the car, gap insurance, it's also very attractive protection. And they're selling off modest increase in monthly payment, and they find this to be most effective. And the best results are by reducing or eliminating haggle on this. This is how they're seeing the best results. And that does a couple of different things. It reduces chargebacks, increases closing rate penetration, and increases CSI. So as dealers, how can we make this change? So how can change be made easy? So if you think about, the Michael Jordans of the world, you can't build a successful sales team with all Michael Jordans. You need to win with some journeymen too. So the first thing is mandate a simpler, easier sales process. And that starts with low haggle or no haggle pricing strategy. So I know that's a big shift from where we're currently at, but if we look at it and we talk about our sales process, we got to come up with some sort of low haggle initiative and get the sales team involved in this to build that value. And the other thing too is more people can be successful with less training by doing this, and it's easier to execute and better results. Second thing is ensure sales consultants stay on the rails with a simple technology-enabled process, like I just showed you, and empower managers with easy-use technology to enable them to hold people accountable. So accountability is huge. Find opportunities for coaching and training, and also use the technology for TOs on the fly. So being able to know the situation that you're walking into and not turn it into a price-based negotiation, but turn it into an evidence-based negotiation and build the value in that car, build the value in the vehicle, build the quality in the vehicle, and show those fair pricing proof points. So what are the heights that dealers can reach if they implement this path to the purchase approach? So if you look at this on a tiered basis, a 3-tiered basis, the first one, we'll use the mountain analogy, the foothills. Consistency equals reduced price drops and higher gross profit. So even at the lowest level, reduced price drops and higher gross profits, I think everybody would be happy with. The second level, mid-mountain, quality and consistency equals increased closing rate and sales volume per consultant. and this can reduce sales consultant turnover by 50%. We have a lot of dealers, a lot of examples where moving to a more consumer-centric sales approach and getting away from that traditional road to the sale, their turnover in salespeople has dramatically decreased. And the last part, the summit, the top of the mountain. So dramatically lower cost structure due to consultants handling process from beginning to end. So this is down the road, but we see to where the industry could be going to where, if we can empower our salespeople with the right technology and the right training, we can take it from cradle to grave. And a lot of dealerships that I'm reading about are trying to move this way. So when you meet somebody at the door, at the initial meet and greet, that's your person through the whole process. You can't do that with the traditional sales approach that we have today. You got to think about changing that and making it more built around the consumer and the way that they want to purchase a car and the way they want to do business. So that's my time. Thank you very much. We'll open it back over to Nick for questions. And if you want to reach out to us directly, the contact information is on the bottom of your screen here. So Nick, I'll turn it back over to you.
Excellent presentation, Patrick, and very, very much appreciate a lot of great advice and recommendations there. And as just a reminder, we are recording today's session, so please watch your inbox for a message containing a link to it that will be sent to you as soon as possible, so you can review this great material and share it with other managers and colleagues at your store. And if you have any questions for Patrick McMullen of MAXDigital, please use the questions box on the GoToWebinar control panel. And Patrick, to get our Q&A session started, you referenced it during the latter portion of your prepared remarks, discussing the need for no haggle or a low haggle pricing in order to implement this process. Do dealerships have to take that leap and go to that pricing strategy in order to really follow the path to purchase as you described?
Yeah, I think it just happens organically, because if we think about changing our sales process to a more evidence-based selling approach versus that traditional 12-step program that turns into a price negotiation, if we move more towards the evidence base where we're selling the quality and value of the car and using pricing proof points, the low haggle really just comes organically, because if you're building the value in those three steps, the quality, the value, and the price, even if you do need to negotiate, it's going to be lower than what it is today. So what we teach dealers is when we go in and we have kind of our initial consultation before they start using our products, is let's look at where you're at today. So maybe you have a $900 drop on average per deal. So let's try to cut that in half, and let's try to cut that by $200 over the next month, and then step it down to where they get to a reasonable level and their goal that they're looking to get to. So somewhere around, if we can start negotiating in $300-400 compared to where a lot of us are at today, just think of that. If we could cut $950 in half over 3 months, think about the bottom line. And then once we get to our achieved goal, we work towards our next goal. And then it becomes to the point where you're selling tens of thousands of cars at, just over $100 discount per deal.
The voice you're hearing, that's Patrick McMullen, who is the Senior Vice President of Strategy at MAXDigital, and he's our special expert guest for our webinar today, aligning sales with the customer's natural path to purchase. And Patrick, one of the questions that's come in from one of our dealers who's joined us live today is, at what point should the finance component be introduced to the customer and on this pathway, since so many vehicles need to be financed nowadays? What have been some best practices of other dealer groups or clients that you have of when the financing component is introduced?
Yeah, good question. So what we've learned from our dealers who have really adopted this process and have seen great results is it's after the initial, that's after the test drive. So we initially identify the vehicles that the customer is interested in. We build the value in those. Obviously, there's some qualifying questions in the beginning that you need to ask the customer to make sure that they're not looking at something that might be outside of their price range. But once they identify a vehicle that they're interested in and they've built that value, then we agree on a purchase price and then turn that over to the financing department or the sales manager, whatever works best for your current process. However you have financing set up. But it's done after the initial consultation and test drive and identifying the cars and building that value. If it's simply like I just need a car that I can afford, obviously that would be a different path that you would take, and you'd keep your current process. Somebody comes in and says I need something under $10,000, or I don't really care what I drive, I just need something under $250 a month. That's going to be a different road to the sale than a prime customer. So I think it depends on the customer as well.
Again, the voice you're hearing, that's Patrick McMullen, who is the Senior Vice President of Strategy at MAXDigital. His contact information is there on the screen. If you or other members of your dealership team want to reach out with questions, Patrick's information is there on the screen. And another interesting question that's come in, Patrick, and during your presentation, you showed some of the solutions that are out there that show be it Black Book or NADA Used Car Guide, some of the other platforms that show what book values are nowadays. And if in fact a store has a customer who's not aware of some of those information points, perhaps they haven't spent as much time online as some of the other potential shoppers are, should a dealership still show that information from those sources, or or should they keep their cards close to the vest, so to speak?
I think the more transparent you can be, the better. Because if we remember, consumers, they may have some sort of apprehensiveness about the dealer or about the process or about the car salesperson, and they may feel like they're getting taken advantage of, even though they're not. We know a lot of really, really great dealers out there that they're not looking to take advantage of customers, but that's the mindset that a customer may have when they come into the dealership. So anything that we can do to set ourselves apart and be transparent, even if the customer is not aware of, NADA, they're probably aware of Kelly, just from the branding that Kelley Blue Book does. Is one of the most trusted sources in automotive when it comes to third-party information. So by showing that, the only thing that it's going to help you do, there really is no negative. It's just going to help validate your price. So if you're priced at $21,999 and Kelly says that you could sell the car for $22,500, why not show that, hey, we're $500 below what Kelley Blue Book says this car is worth? That's only going to help build additional trust in the dealership, in the salesperson, and in the process. And it's going to help you hold that gross on that car. Because we priced it initially to where we thought we could make a decent margin and also sell the car quickly. All we'd be doing by not showing that information is leaving some doubt in the customer's head that, hey, I might be getting taken advantage of. But if I use the pricing proof points and I use third-party data, it could only help us. It can't hurt us.
Closing moments here with Patrick McMullen, who's the Senior Vice President of Strategy at MAXDigital for our webinar today, aligning sales with the customer's natural path to purchase. And just a reminder that we are recording today's session, and so please keep watch of your inbox for a link to the recording of today's session, so you can share it with other members at your store and review the great material that Patrick has shared. And another couple of questions to kind of close this out today, Patrick. Again, you referenced how savvy shoppers are nowadays. Again, if if someone is really in tune with the technology of today, that the shopper, that they buy so much on Amazon, for example, and want to complete as much of the transaction online as possible, how can dealers take advantage of those potential customers? And also, when they do make these changes, how long should they wait to evaluate the potential successes? What's been your recommendations as far as how quickly a store measures what these changes, what kind of impact they're having?
Yeah. So the first part of that question, there is some technology out there today that's trying to take the entire car buying process online and keep it out of the dealership. I think we're still a little ways from that, and if we think about that side of the spectrum, we're still missing the middle part, which is, making sure that the customer understands that they are getting a good deal and building the value in the car, because otherwise it's just going to come down to that price negotiation, regardless of if you do it online or in the store. So even though the industry might be going that way in the near future, I think as dealers, we can still make a big difference today with customers that are coming to our lot by building that value and quality in the car. And I see dealers, when we implement the software, I see immediate feedback from them that it helps close gross. And it's not that big of a challenge to change the mindset of, hey, instead of, negotiating on price, just talk about the car and build the value, because customers don't want to deal with salespeople. They want to deal with product experts. So the more that we can make our sales consultants product experts and instant experts on the car, the better off that we're going to be to hold that gross. And, I would say within the first couple of days, you should see some success stories. And then from there, monitor on a monthly basis to make sure that you're heading in the right direction. So in that example, if we have a $950 average drop, are we moving towards our goal of maybe $400? And then once we get to our goal, what's our new goal? And monitoring that on a consistent basis. But the fundamental mindset has to change around price-based selling to evidence-based selling.
Again, that's Patrick McMullen, who is the Senior Vice President of Strategy at MAXDigital, our special guest expert for our webinar today, Aligning Sales with the Customer's Natural Path to Purchase. And Patrick's contact information is there on the screen. Please be sure to reach out to him directly if you have some questions unique to your store and how you could implement some of these recommendations. Patrick, excellent job. A lot of great material. We appreciate being able to collaborate again.
Thank you very much, Alex. And thanks for everyone's time today. Really appreciate it.
Again, thank you so much for joining us, and we look forward to having you again next time.